Red Dead Redemption 2 took the world by storm in October of 2018, 6 years ago, by a developer who was known for hit game after hit game. It led to thousands of hours of YouTube videos, Twitch streams, shorts, and 65 million unit sales worldwide. But why? What caused this game, of all games, to be so successful? What caused a cowboy simulator to be so captivating? Was it because we all got to live out our Wild West fantasies? Sure. Was it because you got to rob trains, get in duels and bar fights, ride a horse and go hunting? Sure. But maybe it was because it was so much more than that. Maybe it's because for the first time in history, we got an open world game that actually captured the essence of open world. We got a game that could be as immersive as a player could make it for themselves, an immersion level that rivaled any other thing on the market. No, see, Red Dead Redemption 2 was immersive on a new scale. It took a relatable environment and used it to show you the cracks and the crevices of a world broken yet rebuilding. It gave you first-hand accounts to real relationships that people could find connection to their own lives with. It gave us Arthur Morgan, a tattered man who knew no good, who gave us a redemption arc that was true to the namesake. A man so desperately flawed and so ravenous for meaning that he would do the bidding of the gang he was loyal to with little to no questioning. No regard for how terrible or inhumane the request, but a blind loyalty to a group who never had his best interests in mind. A man who needed life to beat him down so violently that only by facing a slow and painful death could he find that life was more than just what was in front of him. No, see, Red Dead Redemption 2 was special because it was what could have been, what could be, and what was. We played this game and saw a reflection of what our lives could have been had we lived in such a time as that. We saw what could be if everything we know about the current modern society we inhabit shifted to the times of sticks and stones, where trains were the greatest technological marvel around. We see firsthand what much of life was like for people who lived so simply that their alarm clocks were the birds chirping and the sun rising. We saw a not-so-alternate reality that gave us every ounce of what our primal instincts desire. Freedom. Freedom on an incomprehensible scale when compared to today's day and age. We saw a glimpse of what life was like when humanity found a new path from lawlessness to cultural refinement. It didn't just give us a generic, no-holes-barred Wild West shooter. It showed us the moral and internal conflict when rough men were forced to come to grips with the fact that the world was changing and leaving them behind. We saw Arthur go from a man who would happily beat men for money in front of their families, and then we saw him transform into a broken man, sick with tuberculosis, destined for death. A man who ultimately became more whole than when he was healthy. We saw what happens when life proves to you that time is the most precious resource of all, and no amount of money will buy you more time or erase the sins of the past. That true redemption is acceptance of what has been and pressing forward to leave things better than they once were. It gave us a world so detailed that people, to this day, are still hunting for what secrets lie dormant under the surface. A world so enthralling that every interaction that you have genuinely means something. A world that gives you real consequences for real actions. A world with a morality system that's more than just a secondary gameplay mechanic. This is a world where every bird in the trees and every squirrel on the ground and every living thing that exists around you has purpose. Rockstar delivered a map that was more than just a place for sequential quest lines and fetch quests. What they gave us was something that needed no primary story focus, but rather a world that had so much life in it that the player could merely exist and find meaningful things to do. There are encounters that you find that add depth to the story. be it attempting to help a man and his horse that leads to the man's untimely and accidental death, or finding a new shack in the woods that has signs of life. It has scenery that reminds us of home, wherever home is to each of us, all while backed by the most encapsulating score ever put to a video game. A score that was meant to be more than just music, but a score that adds emotional depth to an already emotional story. By the end of it, you ached over watching the pain bring your character to his knees, the character that you had found a little piece of yourself in at times. You mourned the loss of your horse and felt it in your soul when Arthur told it, "Thank you, one last time." That same horse that carried you for hours upon hours through your bad decisions, through your good decisions, and then found you and picked you up to take you home after washing ashore. That same horse that you had to leave behind while it takes its final breaths. By the end of it, you, the player, shared the sentiment when Arthur told John to be a man and take care of your family, begging as a brother to carry on while we stay back to see this redemption through. You saw the fleeting reality of an imperfect life and what real redemption looked like. It showed us that each of us are not defined by the weight of the past, but by the hope of the future. By the end of it, you realized you had spent all this time in a world and story that's considered to be the closest adaptation of the depth and detail of a book, but in video game form. Yes, we found depth, and yes, we found emotion, but more than that, we found a world that we could relate to. And for that, Rockstar, myself, and countless others, thank you. We thank you for putting together the closest thing to perfection this industry has seen in years, and what so many are desperate to see return today.